Okay, I think that's my cue. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all coming to the first ever Gateway PGA webinar, specifically geared towards college golf, basically, is what we're here to talk about. So I assume I can't see you guys, but I assume you guys all know me from the tournaments that both Mackenzie and I run. And I am just here you guys have seen it in emails prior, but we have forged a partnership with RSA Consulting. That relationship was made possible by the great Mary Swanson, who is also a local St. Louisan. She's an integral part of the first tee, and so she introduced us to RSA and Tanya. And after sort of several meetings between Mackenzie and myself and both Tanya and Mary, we just really liked their story. We really liked what they were doing, and we thought that it could help our junior golfers that are participating in all of the Gateway tournaments. So we sort of locked it down and forged that friendship. And one of the many things that they bring to the table is the ability to do a couple of these webinars. And like I said, as per the emails you guys have probably seen, we're going to do a live one of these coming at the end of February. So thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason and Mackenzie. My name's Tanya Olson, and this is Mary Swanson, the other individual that you see here with RSA. We're very happy to be in this partnership with Gateway and very fortunate for the opportunity to chat with you guys tonight about college golf and all of the ins and outs. And you're going to have the opportunity tonight to hear from two really great individuals, a former D1 coach and a mental strategy professional, we'll call him. Wears a lot of different hats, but really excited for you guys to hear from them and learn from them. Just a little bit about myself. I did play Division I golf back in the 90s. Wonderful experience. And I've been in the consulting world for over 15 years now. I've helped placed over 175 kids, all divisions, and very fortunate and happy to do so. I love what I do, and really happy to help you guys through this journey. Mary?
Thanks, Tanya. Great to be here, and thanks to Jason and Mackenzie for kind of coaching us through the process of partnering together. So excited to join you tonight. After 20 years in college coaching, I began a career with the First Tee in 2021. And at that time, that's when I was fortunate to align myself with Tanya and RSA. So I was fortunate to coach at both Division I and Division III. Located right here in St. Louis. I was at Washington University for 3 years. So I'm in your backyard, and I may have met some of you out at Gateway events or through the First Tee programming that we deliver in the area. And really excited. We're helping kids kind of with personal roadmaps to reach their goals relative to college golf. Looks different for every young person that we work with and every family. And certainly all the experiences I had coaching, I've got a lot to share. So I'm grateful to be in the role that I'm in and, to get started tonight with some exciting programming that will continue throughout the kind of winter and spring months into summer tournaments with Gateway.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. So we do want this to be very interactive. I know that Mackenzie sent out an email earlier today asking if you had any questions. You can put them in the group chat, and we want to be able to answer the questions that you have. So please don't be shy. Make sure that you put them in the group chat, and we'll do as many answers as we can. But let's get started with Janet Carl. She is a 27-year member of the LPGA in the teaching and club professional division, 4-time Midwest section coach of the year, 1-time national coach of the year, 21 years of college coaching at the D1 level with 18 team titles and 17 individual titles. She has 7 players that turned professional and 3 still playing on the European tour as we speak. So quite the rock star, Janet. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we'd love to hear from you, being all of your wisdom as a D1 coach and everything that means. So with that, take it away.
I just want to say, appreciate you all for having a chance to talk with you tonight. I think that there are a lot of things that I know when you're in the stage of looking into what college am I going to go play, you have a lot of hopes and dreams out there. And I think it's really important that you have somebody who can help you kind of wade through the muck. I think there's many, many opportunities for you. Being a former men's and women's golf coach, I pretty much know both of those sides. And I just think anytime you have someone who is unhappy with the decision that they've made, it's because they've really kind of relied more on just what their dreams were versus a realistic view of what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Um, there's a lot of divisions out there. It's D1, D2, D3, JUCO, NAIA. And the thing I want to say and just really reiterate is, only 7% of athletes get to move on, and it doesn't matter what level you're in. So any time you get a chance to do that, you're really a rock star from that situation. So I know a lot of people put this vision in their brain of I've got to go D1. We have had LPGA players who are super successful at the other levels also. So I think it's just really important that you have that roadmap, as Mary was talking about how you're going to get to where it is that you want to do, what you're wanting to do. One of the things I always told recruits when they sat in my office is, first of all, you need to be a great match from an education standpoint. Once you've matched the education piece, then you start to match whatever the sport is. So for us, it's going to be golf. And then you match the coach. And it's a situation where coaches can be gone at any time. So you still have to be happy with the school and you have to be happy with the team that you have. But above that, it's often not thought of what happens if I go in and I tear a labrum in my hip and I need to do some work on that and have a repair. And then what happens if an injury takes me out of my sport? So you always want to be matched according to an education. That's going to be a really important piece. I think that, when you go to be realistic about where it is that you're wanting to play, I think you really should talk a lot with the players that are at that level. I think at the end of the first year freshman, I would always survey the students and I would talk to them a lot about what is it that you didn't understand was going to happen? How was it different than what you thought it would be? And I think one of the biggest pieces that people always talk about is they just had no idea at the D1 level how much time and energy you're going to put into golf. And I grew up in Indiana. I went to Alabama and, I got into where we played golf 365 days a year. And it was an adjustment for me. Like I was used to putting the clubs away maybe for 3 weeks to a month. And then all of a sudden we never had a break. So you really want to have an understanding, just a typical week when coaches are trying to figure out what a schedule is going to be for that week. We're going to put in 3 days of conditioning, and then we're going to put in study hours. And then we're going to put in maybe team meetings to talk about team goals and individual goals. And then we're going to throw practice in on top of that. And my philosophy as a coach was I needed players to get better at their short game. That was always number one for me. So we spent a lot of time putting and chipping and pitching and bunker shots and then trouble shots. And then players would say, but coach, I really need to go play golf or practice my swing. And I'm like, I understand that we're going to play a lot on the weekend, but I need you to get better at this. And the one thing I know that junior golfers were always very accomplished with was how to work on their golf swing. So that was kind of their own thing. And many times those hours are done outside of the 20 hours that the coaches are allowed to have you doing something. So just at the end of the time, it's like at the end of the fall, freshmen oftentimes would say to me they had gotten a little burnt out and they were ready for a bit of a break. And then you jump right back into it. So even though I coached at University of Cincinnati, this last weekend would have been our first trip to go somewhere warmer to go find a place to go play golf. So you're jumping back in as soon as you get started in mid-January, and then you're going to go through May at that point in time. So it's just a lot of time, and it's a lot of different pieces. One of the things that really would burn students out quickly would be if they came into college golf and they had never actually been in a weight room and really spent some time working out, because that's a factor today. I would also say that one of the pieces that maybe hurt some of the golfers more than a lot of others would be nutrition. So also working with nutrition, just to make certain that you have the energy to get through what it is that's asked of you. I know in today's world, you can, some colleges will have nutritionalists. So again, that's part of your 20 hours. So when you start to eat up the time gets eaten up with your conditioning, with team meetings, with nutritional meetings. Now the time for a college coach is getting further away. And so now you're going to have to spend more time on your own practicing. And I think that it's just something that you really need to be aware of. I also think that freshmen need to know how to really make certain that they're coachable. When you get to college, it's going to be that you're going to have a college coach. And I always tried to make a very big difference in my players between coaching golf and being a swing instructor. And I believe most of you will understand the swing instruction side, but not understand the coaching side. And I know Scott's going to talk in a little bit some about strategy, and that's part of what the college coaching piece is. But it's also getting to know the player to an in-depth level that you can truly coach them around a golf course, to know what kind of reinforcement they need and at what time they need it. And it takes time to build those relationships. And I think one of the biggest pieces as freshmen going in, I would tell them really to be successful and feel really successful. One of the best pieces would be to be coachable, to really take a piece that might not fit exactly what you think you understand about the game of golf, ask questions, make certain that you work really hard on understanding why a coach would ask you to do that, and then try to figure out about putting that into your game. It also would be that, working the areas of golf that really need the most work still, I believe in today for junior golfers are short game pieces. I know one of the things we talk about a lot is, when we go to watch you play golf, what is it that a college coach is really looking at? And I would tell you, I'm not really looking like really hard at the number you're shooting. I'm looking at your mental control. I'm looking at the decisions that you're making on the golf course. Should you be hitting driver off the tee, or is a 3-wood better? I'm looking at what kind of short game shot you would hit into a green. Is it the one that everyone loves to hit, which is the high flop? Or is it one that is a little bump and run that can roll out to where you're needing it to get to, or go up a hill that you're needing to get up? Do you have a good handle on all the different shots that are necessary to play college level and at the D1 level and really be very successful at that? I think one of the biggest pieces is, it's always easy to go and look at a roster of players and see what numbers they're shooting. And when they're shooting numbers and you think, okay, I shot 71, last year one time in a high school tournament, and this girl's averaging 71, you got to really sit back and look at it and think, okay, that's my best round. And I did it one time out of all these rounds I've played in junior golf, and I want to go play there. Now it really becomes a decision. Do you want to go there? And if there are, say, 9 players on the team, do you want to go there? And do you want to be the 9th player on that team, or the 6th player? And oftentimes that sixth player position is really difficult. So do you want to be that sixth player who never plays? And then you kind of think about it and think, okay, well, we've got 2 seniors coming up. They're going to leave. I'm going to be able to swing in there. Well, the thing you've got to also remember is that your college coach is out recruiting for the next season. And the college coach's job is dependent upon bringing in players that better the team. So if you find yourself on that outside, is that something that you're going to be comfortable with? Are you going to be really happy being there? Or would you rather be in a position where you can play all the time? And that's where I really feel like having someone to guide you through what those decisions are and coming up with your personal goals is an easier way for you to figure out what that best fit is going to be. I can tell you, everyone hears that transferring is one of the big buzzwords in college sports, no matter what sport. And transferring is always a harder piece than people believe it's going to be. So when you make your decision, you really want to be happy at the first place you're going. You got to really truly have an in-depth understanding of what that coach is going to be asking you to do. So then it starts to become even more important that the younger you are, that you start into the process. And it's not always about contacting a coach when you're in 7th grade. It doesn't have to be about that. That can just be getting with somebody who can really tell you what it is you need to start to develop to become a golfer that a coach is going to want to look at. And that could be one of the things that I'm very big on, and I'm sure you'll hear talked about is, do you keep a journal? What do you learn from your journals? Do you have understanding, through one summer of golf, where have you come from and where are you going to, making certain that you're looking at your goals, setting those goals and learning to do that early in your process is a whole lot easier than getting to college. And then all of a sudden you're at college, and I'll be very frank with you about the first year. All of a sudden you're at school, you're having some fun, you got some friends you're hanging out with. All of a sudden a big test comes up. You've been qualifying all weekend. You wake up, you got a scratchy throat. All of a sudden moms and dads aren't around. You don't have any laundry clean, and you have to go do golf at 6 o'clock in the morning. You got to get up and go make it to the weight room. So really having a good structure and understanding the schools that you're looking at, what it is that they're going to ask you to do, is a huge piece in order to really have a good fit for that program. I think that making certain that your potential college coach, and your swing coach can have a good relationship between the two of them is very important. There are times that sometimes swing instructors, and I'd be honest with you, I'm a swing instructor. There are times that swing instructors don't truly understand what a college coach is trying to do. The better that relationship is, the easier it is to truly understand what each other is going to need and how you would work together. I personally always call college coaches and I talk to them now to make certain that we have a good communication, because that's the easiest way for you as a junior golfer to really make that transition into college golf. I know that I played at University of Alabama. The experience was well worth all the time and energy that I put into it. But it was hard. And I would say it's harder today than when I was playing golf. So now that you're in playing junior golf and you're really looking at, how do I make it to that next step? I think it's also looking and setting up a really good tournament schedule. And I know that Gateway has some great tournaments, and, trying to look at your 1-day tournaments, 2-day tournaments. I think all of those are really important. And one of the biggest pieces is sometimes playing 1-day events may be beneficial to you versus playing 2 days all the time in a row. And it just is very easy in summers to kind of get burnt out. So again, having someone to help you plan what those tournaments are, where they're going to be best suited for you, and really looking at how you're progressing through your junior golf, and having somebody that can help you do that is very beneficial. Are there any other topics you can think of, Tanya?
Yeah, so Janet,
Yep.
thank you so much. That was awesome. We're gonna kind of transition. We're gonna come back at the end just so everyone, we're gonna all get together and have like a group chat at the end. So we're gonna have the ability to ask Janet questions. So possibly think about everything that she said. If now's your opportunity to ask a Power Five coach, anything you'd, well, not anything, but within reason. Put it in the chat and we'll facilitate that she gets those questions. So Mary,
Yeah,
let's go to
thanks,
Facebook.
Janet.
Yeah.
Well, it is a pleasure to introduce our next guest, Scott Hassey. Scott is the Director of Instruction at Franklin Bridge Performance Institute, and he's been teaching golf for close to 15 years. He's published 2 books on on-course strategy, which he'll get into a little bit tonight. And he has taught 3 multi-year All-Americans, 1 national champion, and his college players have combined for more than 24 wins and multiple school records. He has spoken at our National College Coaches Convention and will be speaking at the upcoming PGA show next week in Orlando, Florida. So Scott, just leading off, would just love for you to kind of talk through what's the best thing a junior golfer can do to begin learning good course strategy techniques?
Well, where do I start, right? So, as a little bit about me, I started at the Hank Johnson School of Golf for 10 years, where I really kind of cut my teeth in learning how to teach, and began to carve out a space on the strategy side. I went to watch a lot of our juniors play in tournaments, caddied for a number of them in state tournaments, state juniors, and such. And I just kept watching, going, we really don't know how to play the game. Like, our techniques have gotten a lot better. We can hit the ball better. We can chip it better. We can putt it better, but we're really not taking advantage of the skills that we actually have. And so that was one of the big separators for a lot of kids. It's not just skill. So I think the first one is to really just begin. The way I like to teach it is you should begin every conversation about your golf game first through the lens of strategy, and then everything else is secondary to that. Because if you go through the strategy lens first, you will often find the weaknesses as they really present themselves. So it's a lot harder. Traditional stats don't tell us why things happen. They pretty much just tell us what, and that includes strokes gained. I know that's the big popular one right now, but it still tells us primarily what happened. And so we've got to get to the why. And if you first look through the lens of strategy, then we'll look at it that way. And Mary, this is one of the things that we've talked about with when you and Tanya have brought some players down, is like, I really don't even like the term course management, because it's a game of strategy. Like, it's a strategic game. It's when you watch football or basketball this winter, right? Most of the conversation as you're watching the game is around the how of the game. It's not around the player's skill. It's around how plays are run, why they're run that way, what they should run at this play, how they should handle this defense, that offense in this situation, this time of the game. Like, it's all strategic based, and golf is infinitely more complex than all of those games. So the first thing I think is to really start looking at everything first through the lens of strategy, then through all of the other lenses, because they're all important. They're inseparable from one another. So what else? I'm so much better because I can just ramble. I don't like to ramble. So feel free to ask me other questions.
Ramble for a while and we'll stop you and direct you, because you're just a wealth of, well, let me prompt you for 1 second. So, all the kids, when we played golf in the mid 90s, we didn't think about the mental game that much. I mean, we had Harvey Penick in our ears when we went to bed. That was the little green book. That was the extent of it. Now, you know, there's so much on that side. It's so much more that athletes beyond golf, right? I mean, look at the Olympics, look at mental health. And it's not a taboo thing. So it's about the way you think around a golf course. And I just want everyone, parents and kids that are listening, to know that that's such a large part of it. And the golf game is 90% mental. And oh, by the way, the other 10% is mental. So, you know, it's okay to look for help in that arena. Whether it's, basically, I like to think of it as the way you're thinking around the golf course, whether it's mental, whether you get nervous, this, that, and the other, and it's sticking to the process. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'll say this in terms of like the mental side of the game, you can read 1,000 different books on it. You can go get help from a sports psychologist, and all of those things are valuable. I've read a ton of books. I spent time around some of the best sports psychologists, and I know many coaches that use some of the best sports psychologists, from Brett McCabe to Gio Valiente to Bob Rotella. I mean, all those big names. But at the end of the day, most of it comes down to the ability to focus on the thing that you need to focus on. You can boil it and simplify it all down to that. And so for me, it's like, what's keeping you from focusing? If you're unprepared for an event and you struggle to be focused and you're extra nervous, that's just a preparation problem. Like, you're not prepared, then, you know, do that. We talk a lot about at our academy here, like, you've got to make your practice harder than your play. Like, you just, and that's, maybe it doesn't look like, you know, running suicides or sprints or laps around the field, but like, you've got to find a way to make things far more challenging than they are. Like, the game of golf is way harder. You know, I laugh when people go like, how come I can't take my range swing to the golf course? Because the golf course is so much harder than the driving range. All the best players that I've taught and been around all spend infinitely more time on the golf course than they do on the driving range, period. And we all have fancy academies with TrackMans and indoor simulator, and all that stuff's incredibly valuable, especially your college programs that are in parts of the country where you can't get outside for like half the year. You know, all that stuff's valuable, but man, you've got to get on the golf course and play. And so in order to do that, you've got to understand yourself. Like, certain people, and I talk about this in my first book, in the Champions Playbook, you need to play to your personality. I know Mary and Tanya, as a part of the stuff that they do a mental golf type, which uses, you know, there's a number of different ways and systems that are out there, but I think the one they have is pretty dang solid. But it's like, who am I? Like, I'm not, like, if I'm somebody who's a very conservative personality, typically your first child, if you're the oldest kid in your family, you typically tend to be a little more on the conservative side. You need to play within that same strategy. If you're playing against your personality heavily, even if your skill set's high, you're going to tend to struggle to perform. And so, like, of course, you're going to be extra nervous and you're going to be anxious. You're not playing within that personality. On the flip side, if you're somebody who's incredibly aggressive, I've taught players on both sides of that. In fact, I've got one right now. He's got 5 collegiate wins. His name is Micah Stangby at Kentucky State University. He started at Arkansas Tech, where I have another young man, Austin Jean, who has 9 course records to his name. He's a 4-time All-American. Like, 2 very different personalities. Micah's incredibly conservative and Austin's incredibly aggressive. So, but both have been incredibly successful because they play within that skill set. And so, like, for Micah, for instance, when he's playing too aggressive early, it usually happens in his putting. That's his weak point. He hits putts too firm in the first couple holes, or he's at a golf course where it's hard for him to read the greens at the level that he's wanting to and feeling comfortable with. He'll play too aggressive. Like, hey, Micah, like, hey, let's leave our first 5 putts short in the first round. Like, you've got 3 days of this. And so when he plays them soft on those days, he tends to start putting better and more confidently as he goes, but he blows one by 4 feet in the first 3 holes. Now he's nervous on his putting. But it's, again, we're back to, I still view everything through the strategy side first. It's not even a mental problem. It's a strategy within who am I, like, as a player. and both can be incredibly successful. And I think really good college coaches find a way to Janet's point, find a way to like, how do I interact with this player? I mean, it's a several month process to figure out how best to coach each player. But if you don't know yourself, that's going to make that thing a whole lot harder. Because if you don't know you and coach knows you better than you know you, you're going to have a difficult time being coached. Because perhaps the way you need to be coached is the way you're being coached, but you're resistant to it. So I
does
don't
that
know if
go
that answers your
into-
question.
Yeah, absolutely. So does that go into, you know, the thing a junior golfer can do to begin good course strategy, knowing themselves? Is that the first?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's okay. Like, admit if you're conservative. I'm on the conservative side. I'll stretch myself sometimes when I'm swinging well and I'm working on my game a good bit. There's certain places I tend to not stretch myself. I'll stretch myself a little bit, but that's in practice, not in competition. Just so I can see, can I take on, as my skills grow, you can take on more, right? And for the aggressive person and the, non-risk averse individual, they need to bring their skill set up if they want to play aggressive, right? So you still have to play. It's that balance of skill set versus personality. I've got a nice chart on that. Like, you've got to weigh those things out when it comes to shot selection. So, if you work on the high flop shot all the time, you may not actually be that good at it. In fact, most aren't. Most tour players and most high-level college players are not trying to hit that shot. That is a mandated, like, the situation forces the shot. So, like, you're trying to play. And if you have a bunch of those shots where you have to hit that, then you've got a really poor strategy. And so we deal with that all the time. I mean, I've gone and consulted for a number of universities. I'm amazed at the number, not to the fault of the coaches, right? It's back to the being coachable. I think we're struggling with that. Be coachable. Like, I still don't have all the answers. Like, I watch golf instructors' accounts that I incredibly disagree with, on the very reason that I don't have all the answers. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And so be willing to be coached, because there's so much you just don't know, and absorb it all.
I think too, it's a good reminder that, at the end of the day, golf is a game of averages, and you're not playing with your best shot all the time. And to Janet's point too, it's, when you're standing in the middle of the fairway and you've got a 7-iron in your hand and the best you've ever hit it is 160 and you've got 158 to the pin, I think that goes back to the mental side, knowing yourself and knowing your capabilities, and again, playing within yourself.
And that's really, really hard to do. One of the things that we like to talk about, what does it mean to play smart? Like, that's like one of my least favorite things. People are like, I'm trying to play smart. I'm like, what does that mean? Nobody's ever given me a good answer, from high level players to brand new beginners to parents to whomever. Like, people just don't know what that actually means. And like, great. Do you understand the difference between different types of games? You got simultaneous versus sequential games. That's game theory. That's talking games. Like, then you don't understand what strategy actually is. And so it's so nuanced. Like, golf is known as the thinking man's game, right? And so it requires a lot of thought. And so we talk about, like, what's the core fundamental flaw? I've got another guy on my staff who played professionally for a few years, who teaches a good bit and does a lot of our on-course stuff. His name's Elijah. And he said this the other day. He said, what most people are doing is they're trying to play golf with their best shot from a perfect scenario rather than their average shot from the current scenario. Like, fundamentally, the error that we see strategically lies at that one thing. They are trying to play their best shot in a perfect scenario rather than playing their average shot in the current scenario. Like, if there's one thing I hope you all take away from this from me, it's that point. That is the fundamental problem in strategy. You solve that one, you solve a whole lot of them. So, for those that have TrackMan or GC Quad or Launch Monitor at your house, like, how far left to right is, if you hit 10 balls, how far long to short is 10 balls? And guess what? If it's 158 to a front flag and you hit your 7-iron about 155, some of those are going to come up short. Some of them are going to be on the stick. most of them are probably going to be short. How far right and left? Well, the pin's middle left. You go at the flag. Even if you're hitting it well, some of those are going to miss off the green left or some right, depending on your shot pattern. And so, Fawcett with Decade and we have a lot of overlap there. I think it's a wonderful system. I simplify it a good bit in terms of playing angles, but it's all how do we place that average shot, even in the context of playing angles or using Decade system. That's the reality of the game. And so, like when people get upset, kind of back to the mental side a little bit, when people get upset, they're just like, oh, if I could just have everything working the same every day. Guess what? The best players in the world, that happens maybe 1 to 3 rounds a month. Like it just doesn't all line up all at once. And so those days that it does, you shoot 62 on the tour. But for the most part, the scoring average on the tour is not 65, right? It's very high 60s to low 70s. So those are the best players in the world. So what are you getting upset trying to chase something that doesn't exist? And, when you continue to try to chase something that's not real, you are bound to be frustrated. And so it's a game of averages. And if you don't think it is, there are going to be days. We see this all the time. I'll be tracking stats on the tour and says a guy should shoot, Jordan Spieth in the final round one year. He was in the lead. It's like, he's not going to lose the lead. He's Jordan Spieth. He knows how to win. And he makes 5 bogeys in the final round. And my data said he was going to make 5 bogeys in the final round. He was behind on 5 bogeys, makes the 5 bogeys under the stress. It's like, is it choking or is it just the reality of averages? And so you can get super upset and look back at the round. He shot the exact projected score we had him to shoot based on how he was playing that golf course. So he played it really well, it just didn't happen to pan out. And so that's where maybe that mental game can have a little edge to help you play slightly better than your averages at the end. But it's a game of averages. Don't try to chase something that just doesn't exist. You're going to be frustrated forever and forever.
So
Yes.
Scott, to kind of head in a slightly different direction, been fortunate to spend some time with you, and you've spoken very fondly of your college golf experience and the mentorship you received from your college coach. Can you speak a little bit about maybe how these foundations of strategy started with those conversations and practices and tournaments and what you learned from your college coach?
Yeah. I'm going to tie into Janet a little bit here. I had a wonderful college coach. He's now the associate women's head coach at Duke University. If you don't know the Duke women's program, they're a juggernaut for the last 20 years. But so I had the privilege of learning from a phenomenal coach. But I remember the first week on campus, he had us do this chip in 10 drill from just off the green. And to the short game component that Janet talked about, the juniors and seniors were used to this drill, and they're done with chipping in 10 balls in about 20 minutes. You're like, and you're only 45 feet from the hole, so a little 15-yard bump and run chip, right? You can stay in the same spot over and over again. And we had 5 freshmen in our class that year. We were there on average like 2.5 hours. Like trying to finish this basic exercise. Like, how are y'all finishing in 20 minutes? That's impossible. And it really comes down to that. My freshman year, we were 8th in the nation among all divisions. I went Division III at Ohio Wesleyan University. We were 8th amongst all divisions in our up and down percentage. So that's one of the pride of Ohio Wesleyan was maybe we weren't the best ball strikers, but we figured out how to place the ball in places where we can get up and down. And to Janet's point, all your best teams, you've got to have that. I mean, the 3 data points I collect, if you don't shoot your data, if you don't shoot the number you're projected to shoot, it's almost always some sort of penalty or it's your short game. It's almost rarely not the other stuff. The other stuff matters. You need to hit it farther. You need to hit more fairways. You need to hit it, closer to the hole. But if you can't take advantage of your misses or take advantage of your good opportunities, then that's short game and that's no penalties. So, but yeah, I mean, my coach started me down that road. I remember we did a similar mental golf type thing there. And I was the worst on positive self-talk, which Mary and Tanya and Janet have known me. Like, that's like not in line with my personality, but it was at the time. I was frustrated by the game, trying to play a game that wasn't real. trying to be perfect. And when I got over that and started playing within myself, and as a kid, my technique wasn't good enough to hit a driver well, but I'm 6'6", and I could hit a 3-wood great. Coach was like, why don't we just hit 3-wood everywhere? So I started doing that and took all the ridicule from all the other guys we'd play with, and even the guys on my team just kind of jabbing at me. It was playful. I mean, nobody was mean. It's just like, that's figured out how to play. Like, wasn't the way I wanted to play. Don't I need to hit driver? And in my case, the answer to that was no. That's a Heinrich Stenson, right? Almost never hits driver. So,
I think it comes down to being adaptable, right? You have to adapt on the fly. That goes to a junior golfer or a college player. If the driver's not working, don't hit it. Right. So,
Tanya, the other thing I've had on the flip side too, I had a young lady that I taught at one of the universities in Alabama, and her coach wanted her to, and we had some nice dialogue afterward. Her coach was like, you need to hit 3-wood here. I was like, she's averaging 85% of her fairways hit, and she's not a long hitter. Like, let her hit driver. Like, I need every yard I can get out of her. So the flip side of that's also true, but it's back to the knowing yourself. There are so many different ways to get that ball around the golf course. And, you look at certain guys, you're like, how does Jordan Spieth frustrates the snot out of me? I'm going left, right, birdie. Like, what just happened? Like, who are you? You can't get up and down from over there. Yeah. So.
All right. We've got about 15 minutes left. We do have a question that I want to address. Please keep them coming. We've had one.
Yes, please send us questions. If you don't ask questions, you're not getting better.
Question. Yeah, that's Scott's thing for sure. If you're not asking, you're not learning. So the question was, and if I get this wrong, please retype it. I honestly, full transparency, I accidentally deleted it. The question was, does yardage matter when picking events? So my answer to that, and I'll let Janet fill this in as a former coach. So my whole philosophy with yardage and tournaments is creating successes. I don't want to throw you guys to the wolves. It doesn't matter, male, female, 8th grade, 11th grade. It does not matter. That is irrelevant. I want all my kids that we work with to create successes and know what that feels like. I want you to know what it's like to be in the lead. I want you to know what it's like to have that feeling. I don't want you to always be chasing something. And if you're playing at 7,000 yards before you're ready, then you're chasing something. If it means not doing that for a while, then don't do that. Don't play in tournaments before you're ready, because trust me, it will do more harm than good. I hope that answered your question. Janet, do you have anything to say to that, or Mary?
I would just follow up with that. Agree 100%. If you're looking at D1 as a college coach, we're looking at usually playing 6,400 yards. Is it important that you are the longest and the best at 6,400 yards? No, it's not that important. It's way more important to know who you are as a golfer and to know how far you hit every club. Mm-hmm. I do want you to be more successful than just always feeling like you're failing. So I would have you back down and play at some different yardages. I can tell you, one of my favorite exercises with my team is 5 rounds when they first get back in the fall from the forward tees, and you can't move to the next set of tees until you're 2 under par, and you can't move back to your 2 under par. And that's one of the ways we used to qualify. You had to be out at the furthest back that you could go, and you had to be under par. So I would rather you be successful 5 times from forward tees and start building your self-image.
Love it.
I'd love to say it this way real quick. I'll make it super brief. It's like, y'all play video games. I know you do. You got phones. Like, you don't move on to the next level of the video game. I know people do cheat codes, but like, you're going to be best suited by doing the previous levels. So whatever that is for you, find that success and move up. Don't jump. Don't skip levels. Like, take them one at a time. If it takes you an extra year or 2 to get there, you're going to get there. It doesn't matter how fast you're moving down the road. Just keep going.
Love it. Love it. All right. We got another question. And this So this may vary depending on the coach. What is most important to coaches? I'm going to paraphrase that and think maybe they're thinking outside of golf, because I would like to hear that answer. We know, as much as golf is about numbers, right? The lower, the better. But you guys want to speak to that as far as what the intangible or
Yeah. So
person.
yeah. So number one, I always say you can't be successful on the golf course if you're not successful in the classroom. Very difficult because you're going to carry that stress with you to the golf course. The second part is I'm always looking for leadership. What kind of leadership have you documented somewhere? Golf is a unique sport in college because you're a team, but you're battling everybody on the team for a spot to go play. So there have to be some great leaders on the team. And if I can find somebody who may not be the best, quote, golfer according to stroke average and distance, but they have great leadership skills, that's a huge factor for me. And I also really like athletes that played more than one sport because that's where they learn the team concept. Athletes that just are nothing but golfer and they know nothing else but that, sometimes it's really difficult to develop them as people. So, even knowing that somebody likes to play the piano or they have other hobbies that they do, one of my favorite questions is, what would you be doing on a day that you couldn't go to the golf course and do anything with golf? What would you go do? And I get a lot of people that would look at me like, I don't know what I would do. And then you get others that go, wow, I'd go out and I'd go to the park and go skating. Just knowing that they have other hobbies also.
And if I could add, from my coaching days, there's one person I can think of who I took a chance on, who was a great student, who was a leader at her school. She was class president. And it just worked out financially that, I didn't have to give her a large sum of money to come to our university. I was coaching Division I at the time. And she was someone that I said, if this young lady starts to play for me as a junior, that'll be pretty awesome. So she came in as a freshman and she was a leader in the weight room. She worked really hard. She was very coachable in the off season, and we put a lot of work in on her short game. That kid missed one tournament her junior year, played herself back in, and then went from an 81 to a 77 stroke average from her junior to her senior year. And I take no credit for that. She was coachable. She put in the work. So I had a spot on my roster. She was a kid who was getting a lot of money from the university because she was a great student. So it didn't cost me a lot. It was a win-win. And we happen to share the same birthday. So every time I have a birthday, I think of her. And by the way, she's from Jefferson City, Missouri. So pretty cool person. It's about finding the right fit. And she, I knew, was the right fit. And it was just somebody I said, you know what, I can see her as part of this team and being a leader. So definitely a lot of intangibles in that circumstance.
Thank you, guys. All right, we're getting some questions popping up here. I love it. What can you advise for a pathway to increase player visibility to college coaches? For me, that's a very individual question. Where are you? What are you doing? What have you done so far? What grade you're in? And that's pretty individualized, but I'll let Janet take it. Again,
Yeah.
What can you advise for a pathway to increase player visibility to college coaches?
Yeah. So if you want to get on my radar, I wanted to hear from you. I do not want to hear from your parents. And I don't care what age that is that it starts. I want you to be honest with me and tell me when you had a bad tournament. Don't try to hide those numbers, which is what you'll get some resumes in, and you think the coach is going to have time to go dig up those numbers? No. And then I want you to continue to show me you're interested in me. And I may not show as much interest in you in the beginning. I'll do the standard answers, but if you really want my attention, make certain that you personally reach out and touch as many times as you can. At some point, a coach will finally say no, if that's what they're going to say. But I just think it's really important for you to do the work on your own, to find out, have a great list of questions for coaches. Like, what are the things you would like to see for me outside of golf? What are the pieces you're looking at? So have a great set of questions. And I always say you should be interviewing a coach just like players are interviewing coaches. So
Yep, amen.
do not be afraid to ask questions of the coach. Do not be afraid. I think sometimes kids think it's kind of scary, but that shows a bunch of initiative.
Thank you. All right, we got another one. And again, I think this is very situational. When do you suggest a junior player move up from 9 holes to 18 holes in this journey? I can take this one. Again, we want to create successes. If you're not ready for 18 holes, again, you're out there for 5-6 hours. Is your nutrition on target? Are you drinking enough? There's so much more than going 18 or 9 holes to 18 holes. So it's a personal journey, and I'm gonna say that again. A lot of these questions don't have a blanket answer because everyone's an individual. And that's another thing I want to touch on before I get to the next question. We have 2 more, and I know we have 7 minutes left. But there's something that we call fairway talk. And I don't want to be ugly when I talk about this, but your kid's not like the neighbor's kids. Nobody is the same. So just because they're doing something doesn't mean it's right for your child. So it doesn't mean that there's one perfect answer. There's simply not. That's why, they're with a lot of these questions, I can't say, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Because as much as we want to help kids on this journey of finding a perfect school, we're about creating great individuals and creating successes and making sure that they're having personal growth, not a lot of failures. So I think that's super important. And if anybody has anything to add to that, please jump in. But it is about creating successes along the way with a game you love to continue to do it for a lifetime.
And to piggyback on that, to kind of go with Scott's comment earlier from the 9 to 18, if you're not playing 18 holes consistently in your practice and experiencing the stress and pressure of that, and you're not managing your nutrition and, not just out playing with your friends or your parents, playing when it matters, you've got to first replicate those conditions in your practice before you can expect to be competitive when it comes to tournament time. So, kind of going back to what Tanya said, we always want to create success, but really showing our kids, what does game day look like? How do they prepare for game day? What does a warm-up look like? We really need to be intentional in our practice and have good habits around that. Ask your instructors, how can I practice productively? Can you help me with a practice plan? What do I need to do to be successful? Those are really important things to have in place before you start introducing the tournament piece. So.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Best way to start reaching out to coaches, and what information should we include? Again, that depends on where you are and who you're talking to. So we do, it has to be personal. That's what I can say there. It has to be personal. It has to be specifically from the athlete. And even Mary and I have done this. I've done this for 15 years. I don't reach out to coaches on your behalf. I teach you how to do it. So there's a huge difference in that. They don't want to hear from me. Janet doesn't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. So how do you get coached up to be a best advocate for yourself? Because you have to be your own best cheerleader. And you have to know yourself. All right, 2 more. I want to make sure we get to them. All right, this one's good. I'm thinking this is going to be for Scott. Okay, our high school
You're
coach
on mute,
pushed.
Scott. You're on mute.
Yeah.
I was
There we
going
go.
to say, I've been gnawing on this question. I've been ready to hit this one out of the park. Give it to me.
Yeah, I know. Oh, so I'm going to read it so everyone else can see it. And yeah, I didn't want you on mute because I know there's a lot of wisdom here. Our high school coach pushes yardage, yardage, yardage. Also, multiple people who we know have played D1 or have had a successful amateur careers focused on swing speed, ball speed, and length due to courses playing longer than years prior.
Well, I've got 3 data points and none of them include distance. So if you hit it a foot closer, it is worth 0.0057 shots. So if you hit it 10 feet closer, it's worth 0.057 shots. If you hit it 20 feet closer, it's not even worth 0.1 shots. So back to Janet's point of short game, you've got to be able to chip it and pitch it close and don't 3-putt. Distance is not unimportant. The only thing it allows you to do is potentially hit it closer. But if you play from the wrong angle, playing from the correct angle is far more important. In fact, it's about 15 times more important to play your shot in from the correct angle than it is to hit it further down the fairway. So is distance important? Yes, I'm not ignoring that fact. But golf is still fundamentally a game of precision. So the stuff you're seeing on the tour, it's popular to talk about. You got speed sticks, right? Y'all are inundated with Instagram and ads and showing you ball speeds and all of that stuff. Fundamentally, get the ball in the hole by hitting it straighter. Like, learn how to hit it straighter, learn how to play from uneven lies, learn how to play out of the rough, out of fairway bunkers, out of greenside bunkers. Like, I'm not saying it's not important to hit it far, but it's kind of like D1-itis. People get it on hit it far-itis, and it's like, fundamentally, to hit it farther, your body has to be in incredible condition in order to control said distance. So get in the gym, get stronger, find a good trainer that's just going to get you stronger. Like, most of you junior golfers do not have any sort of base of fitness that's high enough to be able to handle more club head speed. I have a wonderful trainer that we spend time with out of Birmingham that talks heavily about that. So get in the gym, hit it straight, hit it closer on your chips and pitches. So, like,
all right, we have one
that.
more, and we're pushing the end here. I promised a hard stop at 8. So, okay, in comparison, sports, baseball seems to be so integrated by launch angle, swing speed, exit velocity, and the radar gun, et cetera. Can a kid be noticed by being a steady, focused, hardworking player? I would assume yes, but is it scary for kids that aren't bombing at 300 yards? Yes, 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 and yes. They can get noticed. There is a place for them, and don't chase something until you're ready. And it's not all about how far you hit it. You know, there's a very small percentage that's going to go that top tier D1, which is your top 50 Power 5 schools. And then the next webinar, the title is Beyond Division 1. So we're going to touch on a lot of this. I hope you all can join on that one too. But it's not all about how far you hit the golf ball. Has it changed since Mary and I went to school? Yes. I don't hit it 265. We work with a freshman that hits it 265, and she gets herself in trouble. So Scott knows who this is. So we have told her to keep the driver in the bag. So that distance does her no good. She has to learn how to play without that distance. And then when she learns herself enough to create those shots, then you can put it back in. But her distance hurts her right now. So that's just an example of playing within yourself and knowing yourself.
Yeah, I'll say something real fast on that. It's be careful about being pulled in these directions of what you're seeing. Start through the lens of strategy, not through the lens of hitting it far, not through the lens of what's popular, not through just the lens of fitness. Like, look first through the lens of strategy. What can I do to get the scores lower? Look at the stats. You go search it on your own on Google. If you look at people that have a handicap of 0 or less, which for all of you junior golfers, you will get some attention if you are 0 less handicap in competitive play. The average driving distance for a male is 259 yards. Yes, are there people that hit it farther than that? Yeah, but that also means there's people that hit it shorter than that. That's fundamentally a game of precision and a game of being able to get the ball in the hole when you don't hit the shots that you want to hit. So keep that in mind. Keep pursuing getting better in all fronts. So
Awesome. Thank you. We're a minute over. Jason, Mackenzie, do you have anything you'd like to add? Final thoughts?
I'm just very happy that we were able to do this, and I'll harken back to the intro. Almost every answer I heard from yourself or Mary or Scott or Janet is the reason why those preliminary meetings that Mackenzie and I took with you, we just really believed in and trusted you guys. It certainly seemed like a more personal approach than others that we had had in the past to quote unquote help our junior golfers start thinking about the college game. So just glad we could do it, and I was impressed, and everything went better than I would have expected.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to say one quick little thing. So I've been doing this for 15 years, and I worked for a very large company for about 10 of those. And now I'm co-owner of RSA, and we hang our hat on integrity, morals, and that's why we do what we do. So Mary's my partner in crime, and couldn't be happier to have her with us. And we have awesome people like Janet and Scott that we align with and that we trust. And I couldn't be more grateful of the team that we've put together and the partnerships that we have. We're not the biggest, we don't want to be, but we are making a difference in the right way. And that's what I care about. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining. Mackenzie, Jason, Mary, Janet, Scott, awesome job. Hope everybody can join us the next time. Paige, the producer, you're amazing. Thank you. So with that, good night, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.